Hi guys, happy Wednesday. Welcome to the morning after. I am your host, Sharleen Joynt, and today we are recapping episode 7 of season 16 of The Bachelorette, starring Tayshia. And you guys know I start off every morning after with a moment that delivered, which is brought to you by Skip the Dishes, which delivers delicious food to your door. My moment that delivered, I don't think will come as any surprise to anyone who has been reading my recaps for a while. It was Tayshia and Ivan's conversation about Black Lives Matter, race, and equality on Ivan's one-on-one date. It was sort of like a quasi-group date turned one-on-one date. I also love that they related on being biracial specifically and how they both had this experience of wanting to blend in and feeling like no one around them growing up looked like them. Not only did this conversation feel important and timely, but it also, even just from a technical standpoint, was something we don't see very often, and that is the show taking a real-world event or ongoing issue and bringing it into this bubble, which we pretty much never see. This, in a weird roundabout way, kind of felt like them taking their stance on things. It left a little to be desired that at the height of Black Lives Matter, all they did was just sort of announce Matt James as the next Bachelor. It didn't really feel like there was much of an announcement or much of an explanation for past decisions in casting. And so, even though the show, doesn't step up in the ways sometimes where you wish it would, something about the way they handled this conversation, it really felt like it was dealt with care. It didn't feel rushed. It didn't feel super edited. It felt just sort of like they took their time with it. So not only did we get a great conversation between Tayshia and Ivan that I think will speak to a lot of people, but we also got the show showing their stance by even airing it in the way that they did. So that was my moment that delivered. You guys know that next time you're craving something spicy to go with your Bachelorette drama, you can use the Skip app to get it delivered to your door. So first up, we have something we really haven't seen before, and that is having the guys who weren't on the other group date compete for this one-on-one date, which was, I thought, kind of interesting. I didn't mind it. It certainly was a way to keep things interesting in this environment where the options are very limited. Even though I felt terrible for the guys that had no musical background, I do have a musical background, and I would be petrified to have to write a song in 1 hour and have to perform it. Even if it was just in a room, it's airing on national television. I give major props to these guys. Ivan ends up winning that coveted one-on-one date, and man, I can see why this date was worth fighting for. This was truly a perfect one-on-one date in my opinion. Less of all the bells and whistles and more of just that quality time on Tayshia's sofa with a glass of wine in hand. It doesn't really beat that in terms of feeling the most like real life. I thought that the date itself was just perfection. It felt really cute and lighthearted. We got to see them playing games together. I loved it when Tayshia was like, the floor is lava, we can't touch the floor. It just brings back childhood memories. And I do think a lot of what we look for in our partners in life are people that we can feel like children again with. And so I really thought that they had great compatibility. But not only did we get the feel-good, lighthearted stuff, we also got a ton of substance, and that was Ivan revealing that his brother had spent 4 years in prison, and then it sort of morphed into this conversation about equality. I really like how this came about quite naturally. It didn't feel like we're gonna sit down and talk about race now. It felt like it just sort of came about because he was revealing his family's side of things, and yeah, they just bonded in this way that felt very organic and not at all plotted out and planned the way it so often can with these more serious topics on this show. So next up we have the Truth or Dare group date, and we are joined by Sydney and Becca Kufrin. I thought this was super fun. This date was definitely the much needed comic relief of the episode. I caught myself smiling and laughing a lot throughout this date, especially when the guys had to sort of make their orgasm sounds over the loudspeaker across the entire resort. The best part was when the guys who weren't on the date began ranking them. It was just really cute. It showed, again, that camaraderie between the men, but also just, the guys were willing to be goofy. They were good sports about it, and it was a really cute date. I enjoyed it. And even the evening was also great on this group date. Even if the conversation fell within a montage, we actually saw her conversing with every guy, which sometimes it can be easy to forget actually happens because you'll just see the select few one-on-one snippets that production deems worthy of our seeing. And we even saw Bennett. He's starting to catch real feelings here, and he's typically the jokester, or has been so far, but now we see him really getting invested, and that comes into play later in this episode. This was a great group date all around. I thought it was perfection. So after the group date, we see Ben contemplating visiting Tayshia, and he eventually does. I'm normally indifferent, leaning, disapproving of people sneaking extra time. Mostly indifferent. I don't mind. If that's what you want to do, it's your prerogative, you can make it happen. It certainly can work to your advantage to do it. And in that sense, I'm always amazed more people don't do it. Considering the taste that was left in Tayshia's mouth with Ben, which was that he, wasn't trying hard enough or that he hadn't stepped up. This was definitely a good move on Ben's part. It showed that he was being bold and proactive and all the things we always talk about, or that all the things that bachelorettes always talk about on this season anyway. My favorite part though was how Ben expressed how uncomfortable it made him to do this. He expressed feeling really nervous doing it, and that's always endearing. He knows the crap that he can get from the other guys for doing this, and he's doing it anyway to prove something to her. But it doesn't really seem in his character naturally to ruffle feathers, and I think it's important to have that line drawn in the sand, and so I thought he did this about as well as anyone can. And of course, finally we have the rose ceremony where we see a lot of Noah, and then that sort of explodes. But I'm going to resist sharing my thoughts here because that's what I talk about in my Flare recap, so be sure to read my thoughts there. So that's it for the morning after. Be sure to read my Flare recap if you have not already, and my All the Pretty Pandas recap, which will come out later this week. And yeah, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next week on the morning after. Bye.